The Trump administration is approaching its first 100-day mark with a full court press on the issue of illegal immigration, and they really don't want you to miss it. So they subtly and tastefully deck the White House North Lawn with dozens of yard signs featuring photos of people that the Trump administration claims are in the country illegally, each poster saying arrested and listing the alleged offensive with which they have been charged. CNN's working to confirm the identities and if there are actual allegations against these people. Until then, we are blurring their identities.
Hello, and welcome to the Friends of Zeus podcast. This
Oh
is
yeah,
episode number 217. 216,
216 maybe.
216 is coming,
Oh, it's
but
coming. That's right.
this is 217. And tonight, it's a little bit of a loosey-goosey episode, but a couple things I just wanted to get off my chest and talk about and get Desiree and Jack's, Carl's opinion on. There's a lot of stuff going on. I think yesterday was, or today was the 100th day of the second Trump presidency, I believe. Is that
Yep.
correct? Right?
Yeah, the 100 days, I believe, was yesterday.
That was yesterday. Okay.
I think so.
So, it's an arbitrary milestone, but it's a milestone nonetheless. And, it's a good time to kind of look back on all the crazy stuff that's been happening. If you've been following our podcast over the last 4 years, we started in February of 2021.
Yep.
And if you look back at our episodes, we tend to be pretty topical. We have some fun episodes, but we tend to talk about like what's going on in the particular week or so that our episode is airing. So I figured it would be a good time to take a look at where we are, right now with the Trump presidency and things that are going on. And of course, as everyone knows, my specialty is the media, and kind of like how they're dealing with it. And what we've learned, I think, or what I've learned over the last 100 days is they're not changing anything. They're playing the same exact playbook, that they have been playing. We have the new victims. We've got the Maryland man, who was deported to El Salvador. We've got the guy, who's the green card holder who overstayed his time and was leading anti-Semite protests in Colombia. We've got all sorts of people that are now being held up as the cause celeb in our media. And so what we're looking at is it's the same thing that we've been dealing with this whole time, and that is we are propagandized every day by quote unquote the mainstream media. And the frustrating part is how do we get information that we can trust? How can we get information that we can base decisions on, make decisions on? Because we're not getting it, through the alphabet media at all.
No.
It's very frustrating because on one hand, I feel compelled to pinpoint specifics and like counteract those, but it's almost transcended that at this point where I'm just tired of doing that. Like I don't even want to get into that game. There's the recent story of this person from El Salvador that we deported, Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Yep.
And the media has spent dozens of hours talking about the tattoos on his knuckles and whether it says MS-13 or it's like, icons that represent MS-13 or what. It's all garbage. It's all garbage. Like, I don't understand why we're spending all this time on this. And meanwhile, they spend no time on people that are victims of people that are in the country illegally. No matter what your position is on any of this stuff, we have a media in this country right now that controls the narrative. It's just the truth. And we have an administration that's doing everything they can to kind of fight back against that, but it pales in comparison. I mean, most people, most of my loved ones, my friends, my coworkers, they get their news from the alphabet media, and that's their reality, and that's their starting point. And at a certain point, I don't know. I'm just feeling like really negative that it can even be combated at this point. You know? I mean,
Yeah.
I look at this case, and this is just a specific thing that I know about a lot. Um, the case that's going on with Montgomery County, it's in front of the Supreme Court. They just had oral arguments this week. Um, the case is Mahmood versus Taylor. And basically, the gist of it is that there are families in Montgomery County, Maryland, who have students, children that are in the Montgomery County schools, and they want to be able to opt their children out of reading or being exposed to books that contain things that are the antithesis of what they want to teach their children. Most of them are Muslim. Many are Catholic, some are Jewish, whatever. Some are just non-denominational who want the option to be able to opt out of certain curriculum. And the real diabolical part of this that, again, our media doesn't cover, um, in most schools throughout the United States, there is some sort of sex ed curriculum,
Yep.
and parents are allowed to opt out of that based
Yep.
on, for religious beliefs.
Or if you
And
just not, or if you want to give your kid the talk yourself.
or if you want to give the kid your talk, you have to talk yourself. In the county I live in, Montgomery County, Maryland, they did an end run around that. So all of these books that you've been hearing about that are quote unquote supposedly banned, which aren't banned, you can go on Amazon, buy them yourself if you want. Um, they have introduced these books into other parts of the curriculum outside of the sex ed. So they're required reading in English. There's books that are, math textbooks that have this indoctrination in them, gym class, social studies, whatever. The school system has decided that they're going to require these books in subjects that are outside of the sex ed stuff because there's no policies that allow parents to opt their children out of
Math.
specific books within the English curriculum or the math curriculum or social studies or whatever. So they're, again, trying to be too cute by half by doing this. They know what they're doing. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I mean, they're trying to do an end run around this. And a few years ago, a lot of parents, again, this was very grassroots in Montgomery County. I saw a lot of these things. I've commented on this in previous episodes, um, at least the beginnings of this. And again, it was mainly spearheaded by uh, Muslim families who were like, "Hey, we don't want to stop it. We're not trying to stop other people from learning about this, but we want to opt out." And Montgomery County, Maryland, school board was like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Back in January, they said, nope, you can't opt out of this. So this is government school saying that your child has to read XYZ book, and you as a parent have no say over it. Yes, that's right.
Mhm.
Sorry.
What are the books?
Like Pride Puppy, like all the stuff that you've been hearing about, mainly like in high schools, but this is more in elementary schools and high schools. So it's like genderqueer, Lawn Boy, a lot of these books that are like graphic novels that have sexually explicit things in them.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there was also a children's book, so we're talking about very young kids
correct. Yes.
that included transgenderism, like the concept of gender
Correct.
fluidity.
Yes.
Um,
That you're not born, like when you're born, no one knows what sex you are. And again, this goes
yeah, the
beyond
doctor's guesses what
is
sex you
guessing. And this
Yeah.
goes beyond, to me, it's not even about what the subject is. To me, the point of this is, do I have, as a parent, have any say in the curriculum that my child is being taught in a government school, right? And most parents in our country don't have the option to pull their kid out and send them to a private school. As the first episode of this podcast, I talked about struggling with that, and I did. I pulled my child out of Montgomery County, Maryland schools, and paying way more than I would like to send her to private
Yeah.
school now, just to shield her from that. But there's a lot of people that don't have the option to make that choice. So this has gone before the Supreme Court. They argued it this week, and we'll see where it goes. But what I'm saying is, looking at this, and kind of the broader point I kind of wanted to get into, this is, and again, I feel crazy saying this, but we're right on this podcast more than we're wrong. We are in a war. We are in a war right now. We
Yep.
really are. I mean, all of this happy crappy talk about, well, it's a difference of opinion or whatever. This is the Montgomery County Public Schools have a budget of about, I think it's like $80 million, or I don't even know what it is, 8 billion. It's a ridiculous amount of money. And all of the teachers and all of the people on the school board are far left, radical, Democrat, activist folks. They just are. Whether they identify as that or not, they are. And there's not a lot of choice. If you're a parent in Montgomery County, you can either send your child to a government school that is indoctrinating them in a certain mentality, or you can spend $10,000-15,000 to send them to a private school. And yet we're paying for these government schools with taxes. And when you bring up the idea of, we need to change this, you're anti-education, you're against teachers, you are authoritarian, all of these things. But my point is, when you look at the media and you look at like what the establishment is doing, this is an existential struggle that we are in right now. It's not and Trump, was elected, but he's got like 3.5 years left, right? I don't know what's going to happen after this. I mean, I was very positive for a long period of time. Um, but I feel like this is a losing battle. I really do. I'm starting to feel that way, as sad as that is. I don't know what a win looks like. I mean, when you have the vast majority of the population being told what reality is by an increasingly small number of folks who are in on the deception, again, advertising works, propaganda works. gaslighting works. That's why they do it. And I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with it. I just wanted to
No,
open it
Mike.
up to you guys and see what you
Well,
guys are thinking these days.
well, hey, listen, I'm going to offer a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's why I have a glimmer of hope, because you're right. Mainstream media is it's not even like government press anymore, because now we have a Republican president.
Hmm.
It's just Democratic state deep state press,
Party. Yeah, party
party
press.
press. That's all it is. We saw this throughout this podcast's existence because Biden was president the whole time, and the media spent all their time focusing on Trump and what a bad person he is, and totally omitting everything negative about Biden that they could. Or if something was so bad that it had to be covered, it was covered for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Even the Afghanistan withdrawal, it didn't matter. Like that they brushed over that too, except for like conservative reporters and such. But here's my glimmer of hope, Mike. Trump won.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that was just November, and even though there's 70 plus million people that voted against him, he won the majority. He got the electoral votes he needed. He won all the swing states and all the bellwether counties or whatever. So, I mean, he did. There's people out there. And I actually thank Elon Musk and X to be a big part of that. You got to look at the growth of platforms and social media like Daily Wire and Steven Crowder and Tim Pool. Like these guys are gaining, Dan Bongino.
Hmm.
These are guys that just gained momentum over the course of the Biden administration to where they were getting millions and millions of more viewers. And to me, that equals a younger audience. And supposedly, according to polls, this younger generation, this Gen Z, they're actually leaning more conservative, believe it or
Yeah.
not.
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
So the combination of Trump winning the way that he won, despite the media calling him Hitler every day and calling him a convicted felon and a rapist, and you name it, right? They called him everything you could do. They indicted him 4 times. They tried to kill him. It didn't matter. They couldn't stop him. So that to me means that there's still hope that maybe we don't lose in 28. But to your point, the reason the media is doing everything they're doing is they want to win in 28, but they also want to win these midterms.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's going to be the tell. That's going to let have the Trumpers lost some steam? Has the media gotten more people? Have they gotten the old Democrats back? You know what I mean? By focusing on, Trump's a Nazi and this and that, and he's a
It,
fascist. But here's where I'll agree with you a little bit, Mike. Like the idea of not talking to these people anymore,
yeah.
because I mean, I'm actually worried about this summer, believe it or not. Like
Me too. We
I'm worried
alluded to
about,
this before. Yeah.
yeah, I think there's potential tinderbox of civil unrest. I think they're instigating it. You're seeing it with these Tesla protests, the Doge protests, now a protest for, trans rights, as far as what Trump has pretty much been coming down on that as well. I don't know, man. It's summer gets hot, and protesters like to like to go outside when it's nicer out than, let's say, the winter we've had. So I have a feeling there's a wave of this coming, and unfortunately, I do feel like you that this is a war. It's almost like, I don't want to say there's going to be a civil war, but if you look at what's going on now between the administration and the executive branch and the judicial branch, and how everything is a constitutional crisis
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
it's almost like the civil war is happening in our government already.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've got these district court judges
Yeah.
who are basically trying to make law over the whole country, right? Doing things that not even a Supreme Court justice can do. And again, that's bad enough. But we've got this propagandistic, gaslighting Democrat Party media that is carrying the water for these people. And unfortunately, at least where I live, the the vast majority of people like just totally buy right into that. Now, I know that where I live is not everywhere, you know.
Right.
But it's frightening to me to see how easily manipulated people are. I mean, again, it's you look at I don't know if you guys saw this, but the current White House took the website that used to have all this information about COVID and kind of turned it
Hmm.
into a website that showed like all the things that the previous administration did about COVID that were ridiculous. Um, I live in a county where people still wear masks. I mean, today, I saw people still driving around in their cars with masks
Hmm.
on, in public with masks on. Um, you see a lot of these people that are at these quote unquote protests, which are basically, um, aggressive, sort of offensive political acts, wearing masks as a way to conceal their identity, right? But you're not allowed to say anything about it. So, because like, oh, they're doing it for health reasons, but I doubt there's like hundreds of 20-year-olds that are out there with health reasons needing to wear masks. Um, you've got things where, again, here in Maryland, you've got this moron who was deported to El Salvador. The media, and this is an actual study, in 1 week, they spent the main broadcast media spent over an hour of airtime during their news broadcasts talking about this guy. And at the same time where Rachel Marin's murderer was found guilty up in Bel Air, Maryland, they spent 0 seconds covering that. So there's a deliberate
Yep.
decision being made by our corporate press to highlight certain things and downplay other things. And unfortunately, a huge portion of our fellow citizens just follow lockstep with that. Like that is their reality. I mean, you look back at like the Chinese Revolution in the 50s with Mao, and you had children turning in their parents. You had people bringing university professors out in the street, to be, scolded and whipped and killed, whatever. This time around, it's a little different. The far left they've just taken over the universities. They've taken over the media. They've taken over entertainment. They don't have to tear them down. They just captured them, right? And there's still people out there that unfortunately have no idea what's going on. They still think this is like Democrat versus Republican, or they have no concept of what's happening here. Again, I'm going back to the Montgomery County, Maryland situation in front of the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court is going to smack down the Montgomery County Board of Education on this. At the end of the day, it's not going to come out until June. But in the meantime, we've had to go through, like, at least in my county, 3 years of this stuff. You know, I mean, the idea that you send your child to a school and you're not allowed to protest or have any issues with what they're being taught tells you everything you need to know. The government, the establishment views your children as their property. Period. I mean, that's the beginning and end of it. They won't come out and say that, but all of their actions, all of their statements, you know, that's the way they view everything. So again, I hear what you're saying, Jack. I'm just like, we've got Donald Trump is a way outside the box, radically different figure than what we're used to dealing with in politics.
Yeah.
And the clock is ticking with him, right? I mean, I'm just looking at like what comes after him. Because the Republican Party has no balls. They have no. I don't know that they have anyone that can step in the breach to fill his shoes. Is
What
like
about
just
what about the obvious choice? What about Vance?
Vance, possibly, but I mean, again, Trump is he's such a singular figure.
Sure.
I don't know, and it just to me, I get frustrated because I guess at the end of the day, I don't understand why this is such a fight. I don't get it. I don't understand why being able to control or have some control over what your children are taught at school is like a bridge too far, apparently, in our
Well,
society, you
let me
know?
play a small amount of devil's advocate.
Yeah,
What would what would the alternative be? So like let's just say these, there's 20 kids in a class,
hmm
five of the kids as parents opt out of a novel they're reading. What are they
right.
going to do?
The kids
Those
that
five
are
kids.
opted out?
Yeah, what
Read,
is their
Well, this is actually come up. So
read something else.
read something else,
so now the teacher has to do two different types
correct.
of lessons.
And this is what Montgomery County has been saying in their arguments before the Supreme Court. And this is the part that really just kills me. They said that if one or two or three children opt out of something in sex ed, they have an alternative thing. They have a teacher that can deal with these students in another room or whatever. They're saying that there's so many parents that are asking to opt out their children from this curriculum that they don't have the additional personnel and infrastructure to deal with it. Now,
So that's a sign.
Yeah.
correct. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, so you're having classes where there's so many parents that are like, we
No,
don't
right.
want this. And Montgomery County is saying they're using that as a reason to say, well, that's why we can't allow anyone to opt out of it.
But isn't that stupid? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, in other words, these radicals had control over what books are taught in school in different subjects, right? They had it.
correct. Have had it.
And they had this radical agenda, and somebody thought it was a good idea to have books and graphic novels, etc., talking about how to be a prostitute and fellatio, how to give fellatio
Yeah.
and scatology, and you like, I mean, why? This is what I don't get with them is like you have the opportunity to have power, and you're so stupid with the power that you're screwing it all up. Like, why these extremes? Why do you have to have a children's book for 4 year olds that talks about gender and sex and the doctors were guessing? Like, do you
Because
really
they've
think?
lost the plot.
Well,
Yeah.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
like, did they think they were going to get away with that? Of course, the Supreme Court is going to say you're saying it's okay to opt out of the sex talk, but you're putting the sex talk in everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Because
that's basically what they've done.
it is a look,
It's an
and
agenda. They want
it's
to brainwash your kids.
there is it's they are ideologues. So there are two different types of people in politics. You have pragmatists,
Yeah.
and pragmatists look at a problem and they're like, how do we solve this problem? And they tend to like look at all options and weigh them. Then you have ideologues. Ideologues look at a problem and they're like, how do I solve this solely based on what my view of what reality should be is, right? So they automatically kneecap themselves intellectually because they will only look at solutions that fit what their narrative is. And that's what we're dealing with. And those people, at least in many school systems and in many states, are the ones that are in charge. So that's the way they're not trying to find the best solution. They're trying to find a way to push their ideology as far and as fast as they possibly can. Everyone else be damned. Um, and when given unfettered, I mean, really, Montgomery County, Maryland, um, it's it's not the canary in the coal mine. It's an example of when these people are given with this ideology are given unfettered power, where they go with it. Like they
Yes.
just keep going over the cliff, man.
They
Like
can't help it.
they can't help it. And like this county that I live in is the they're the forefront of the retardation that we talk about with this ideology. They are just going to be Thelma and Louising this shit
Hmm.
off the cliff as fast as they can because they can.
Yeah. No, and it's funny though. It's like where they cross the line, it always seems to involve the kids. It seems like we've talked ad nauseum about the trans issue and the puberty blockers and all that stuff. But now you have kids in elementary schools that they want to expose to this stuff. When the theater kids took over Disney, they were putting gay shit in all the kids' animated movies, and then
Yeah.
their stock ended up plummeting because didn't want to have it. They just didn't want it. Plus, they were putting out garbage content anyway. I mean, that they
Yeah.
just didn't know what they were doing. I mean, so I think once you go after people's children, it's they're gonna revolt. I don't
I
care what the media tells them. Suddenly, it's in your backyard. It's in your house.
I
It's your kid.
I I wrote a well-crafted letter to someone in the county, politician, and I was like, here's what I fear, as a citizen. And again, my child's not in the public school. I pulled them out, because of all this
Right.
insanity. If the Supreme Court holds this, that you have to send, here's the premise. If the Supreme Court sides with Montgomery County, Maryland, you have a situation where you are by law obligated to send your child to school. There are people out there, many of them, that they don't have a choice. If they're sending their child to school, it's going to be a public school.
Right.
And if they live in Montgomery County, it's going to be a Montgomery County public school, and they are going to be exposed to this ideology whether they like it or not. And if the Supreme Court comes down and says, "Yeah, I'm sorry, citizen, your child has to endure this," um, it I 100% believe this will turn violent very quickly because I'm a pretty mild-mannered person. I have the means to send my child to another school. But if I didn't have those means, I'd be pretty fucking pissed off, man. If I'm being told I have to send my child to this institution by law, I can't opt out of stuff that I think is totally against what my beliefs are. So I'm handing my child's brain over to the state, and the Supreme Court just said that that's okay. I I don't think that ends well, man. I can because when you start dealing with people's children, you're crossing into a whole new planet of consequence, right? I
Yeah.
mean, people aren't. I mean, if you're like, hey, man, I'm gonna raise your taxes a little bit, I'm like, all right. Or, hey, you have to pay an extra fee for your car. All right, got it. Hey, I'm gonna make your child view this graphic novel that depict like, and your hands are tied and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, does anyone think that that's a problem? I'm just saying,
Well,
it's like,
yeah, so okay,
yeah, that's a huge
again,
problem.
devil's advocate,
Yeah,
kind of in a way. So you can't set a precedent or you can't make it a rule that just because there is something that you don't agree with as a parent in school that you could just opt out of everything. Just opt out of
right, of course,
just
but that's not
pick
what
and
we're
choose what you
saying.
want to opt out of.
Yeah.
So I feel like if they were to say, yeah, you can opt out of what, because we're talking about specifically sex ed, correct?
But the problem is they've
No,
taken, no,
no,
you can opt
no.
out of sex ed. What Montgomery County has done is taken it and put it into the English, math, gym, social studies curriculums that don't have an opt out feature. So they're
Right.
having these, instead of reading The Merchant of Venice, you're reading Genderqueer,
Genderqueer.
right? So that's how they're getting around it. And they're doing it on purpose because they know there's no mechanism, and so parents are like, what the hell? And the school is saying, look, this isn't sex ed. We're just teaching it. It's just a book. Meanwhile, the book has like, it's a graphic novel of like kids blowing each other, right? So,
Yeah, I don't think gender queer is maybe appropriate for,
well,
freshman
Montgomery
English or
County
whatever.
Schools thinks it is.
But I do recall in freshman year of high school, we read a book called The Good Earth.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
do you know what I'm talking? Do you know this
I know
book?
that book. Yeah,
Okay, so this book is not graphic. There might be a couple of very non-graphics scenes or passages, but basically the plot of this book is this couple, this married couple, um, eventually the wife has to be okay with the husband just having a fucking mistress because she's ugly or something like that. I don't know.
yeah.
Well, that at the beginning of the year, they sent out a permission slip, not a permission slip, I don't know, just a hey, so you know, we're going to be reading this book. Just so everyone's aware, we're going to be reading a book that has to do with mistresses.
Yeah. Or
Like,
involves them. Yeah.
yeah, just so
There's
you know.
a lot of that with Shakespeare.
And Shakespeare's pretty,
There's a lot.
yeah.
But
A
again,
Midsummer's Night's Dream.
but there are decades of tradition related to that. It's not an end run around um, what parents have been asking for. I mean, again, they're playing a game, and when they get called on it, they're like, "Oh man, we're just teachers. This is just education," and it's not. They are ideologues. Again, going back to ideologue versus pragmatist. They're these are not people that are saying, we have these fifth graders. We need to figure out the best way to teach them about American literature. So let's have them look at these books. They're ideologues. They're saying we need to indoctrinate these fifth graders. This is the book we want them to read because this is a position we want them to have. We're
Right.
not here trying to teach people how to think. We're here trying to teach people what to think, which is uh, a whole different perspective on it. And again, at the end of the day, the parents, through their taxes, through their property tax and
Hmm.
everything else, are the ones that are paying for this. But you have a ideologically captured institution, which is our education system and our media and our entertainment, who they have an agenda, and when you call them on it, they're like, "Oh no, man, no, we're just here doing whatever,"
Mhm.
I just
That's
don't
what,
and
understand
they're lying.
these curriculums
Yeah,
have to get approved, right? The reading lists for
by
the year have to get approved. And just it's crazy
by
to
the
me
school
how
system
along the way there's not a person that was like, hold on,
because they're
maybe what
99%
happened to like Grapes of Wrath? Like, how come no one's reading that?
because they're 99% um, Democrat Party, and the ideology in our, at least in Montgomery County, Maryland, amongst the education class, is a deep disdain for the Constitution, for Western civilization, for the Enlightenment, for religion. They hate that. That is not that is not relevant to their interests.
right.
So they want to take our children and indoctrinate them into what they want them to feel and or want them to know. And again, this is like right when you mention Marxism, people are like, "Oh man, what are you talking about? We're not Marxists." It's like, dude, that's like, it's not if it's not the number one thing, it's like number two or three, separate people from their families, separate people from institutions, separate people from their norms, pull them out of their religion, pull them out of their community, pull them out of their family. They are not connected to anything, so they can be molded into this new philosophy, this new way of looking at the world, this new ideology.
Well, the way
And
to solve that is get some conservatives in there,
I
like as
know
like moles that just like
they're there.
come off as very progressive, but then be like, I don't know, guys. This might seem weird. Let's touch grass for a second and think about this.
That's the thing. I mean, human nature is, look, there's most of the people in my experience that think about things or think about politics, they're not contemplative. They're reactionary. On all sides. I mean, I know people who are quote unquote conservative, um, who want to have like the screaming eagle and the American flag stickers on their pickup trucks or whatever. Like they're not thinking. They're just like playing a team. They're not thinking about it past that. They're just like on one side or the other. Um, and that's dangerous. It's very dangerous. It being an ideologue where you are putting your view of the world over the reality that you're presented is, I don't care where you fall on the spectrum, that's incredibly dangerous. That is just bad things happen when the majority of the
Yeah.
population starts to believe that or react in that way. And I'm with you, Jack. I think this summer is I I don't think it's going to be good. I think we're looking at a repeat of 2020. I really do. Because that's all they got. That's what they have. I mean, everything gets turned into, um, again, you just look at this
Well,
situation with this Maryland man, and they're trying to turn him into Mr. Rogers. This is
yeah.
our media.
Well, and also I think, uh, I mean, they want the protests, they want the rallies, right? And this is where my tinfoil hat comes on. I think they do want something to really go down this summer so that they can vilify Trump yet again for whatever reaction he has to it, right? So, what I'm afraid of is the incident that sparks it. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know what it's going to be, but I won't put anything past the deep state and its agents. I really won't at this point.
yeah.
So something's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be a George Floyd type thing or if it's going to be something happens to a liberal politician. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but something is going to trigger, something.
Well,
And
they,
and and I'm not sure what it's going to be.
well,
I
they're
mean,
trying. Look, they're trying every day. I mean, you had in the last week, we had this situation where these ladies were deported, or this one lady was deported, I believe in Arizona, and she had like a 5, a 7, and a 11-year-old,
mhm,
and she opted to have them come with her.
right,
And our alphabet media, who are supposed to be like journalists, they're not. We're saying that the United States government deported American citizen children, and that was a headline, and still is to this day. Today, there's ABC still reporting it like that. Um, the mother was deported. She could either have the children stay here with a family member or have them come with her. That's her choice. She opted to have them come with her. They weren't deported. I mean, the fact that they're even called American citizens, whatever, I mean, that's the way the law is now till it gets changed. It's not even the way the law is now, it's the way it's interpreted.
right.
Um, it's not black letter. So anyway, I mean so you have a media that's like pushing that. Oh man, Donald Trump, he is deporting American citizen children. There's a 6-year-old. How horrible is that? No wonder there's people taking shots at this guy. You know what I mean? I mean, we have a media that is purposely trying to inflame
Yeah.
the
And
situation,
the politicians are too.
and the politicians are too.
Yeah.
So
And you,
where was this chick from?
I'm not sure.
Why didn't she get her shit renewed when she was supposed to?
Well, she was here illegally, but she had given birth to three children who, because of the misreading of the
I
14th
understand that.
Amendment,
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, how'd she get she in the beginning she got here legally or illegally?
illegally.
Okay, well, you got
But
fucking
but
11
again,
years for free.
Yeah.
you've
Too
got you've
bad.
got
So sad.
you've got all this media attention on that. But then, and again, I'm not the first one to say this, but you look at like Rachel Marin, the woman from Bel Air, another the Maryland mom, everyone says the Maryland father, who had five children and a grandchild, and they were separated because her head was bashed in with a rock by this guy that was here illegally.
That's happened so many times.
0 seconds spent on that. No one cares about that. I mean, I kind of coined this term the other day when I heard about this, the children leaving with their mother by her choice. It's like you want to have chain migration, let's have chain deportation, right? So it's like if your family member gets deported, they can choose to have you go with them, right? I mean,
But honestly, as they should, those children need to be with their mom.
correct, correct. But again,
So yeah, she's like, yeah, I think I'll take my kids.
you get into this thing and then you tie it into like the Congress, like the Democrats are like completely against the bill to, put more restrictions in that would prevent non-citizens from voting, and they say that that's like Jim Crow
Hmm.
2.0. Look, here's the reality. We have a party in this country that hates the country. They
Yeah.
hate the Constitution. They want to destroy it. We have a media that supports that party, is of that party, and does everything they can to push that agenda. And meanwhile, you've got people like myself who consider themselves pretty reasonable. And these people will take that reasonableness and just turn it around and use it against you.
That's right.
So at a certain point, you just have to put your foot down and be like, no, man, and that's what we're getting to. But when you have one party in the country that is they are using the rule of law to destroy the rule of law. They're using the Constitution to destroy the Constitution. Um, that is very hard to defend against when they also own
The
the
media.
biggest fire hose of propaganda that there
Hmm.
is. Again, my fear is this, and I've said this a million times: propaganda works, advertising works. That's why Coca-Cola and Pepsi spend billions of dollars on it. So we can tiptoe around this and be like, oh, yeah, I mean, they have NBC and MSNBC and CBS and CNN and the Washington Post and New York Times and Politico and all, but, that's not the truth. It's like, no, man, at a certain point,
It
having
becomes.
having that level of control over what is talked about in the public square, it's
Yeah.
game over, man. It's checkmate. It's checkmate. Like they don't have to convince everyone. They just have to convince 51%. And they're doing it. They're getting close, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
But again, Mike, I mean, they've been doing it since we've been doing this podcast.
true, right.
And Trump was still able to win.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to. I mean, you're right that there's no getting through to these people. They've been indoctrinated. They've been educated. They're ideologues, right? There's no point anymore. And the guy at the party who's ranting and raving, like you said, you don't even want to try to reason with the guy anymore because it's just going to make him
Yeah.
more more volatile, right? It's just going to upset them more. And then you're stuck in the middle of this with this guy in your face.
It's a waste of time.
Right. It's a waste of time. But at the same time, man, there's a lot of people like you too. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and I don't know. I don't want things to get to to the point where, because I mean, one side clearly has no problem being violent.
True. I mean,
I
that's a
mean,
great point as well.
I
Yeah.
mean, because they'll throw firebombs and they'll burn buildings and they'll break shit and they'll assault people. I mean, and what does the other side have? I mean, you had the January 6th thing, and that was like the worst thing since 9/11,
Right.
according
Right.
to the media.
Right.
Okay, and
Right.
now that's looking more manufactured by the day. Another story the media is not covering.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know, as far
uh,
as agents in the field and all of that.
again, I mean, you go back to, you know, go back to COVID, right? The whole idea that
Kobe.
the masks thing, and again, Desiree, I understand your perspective, and I agree with that. But what I'm talking about is the direction that we were getting was not based on science. They were just winging it. Um, and they weren't being honest with people. You know, the 6 feet wearing masks, the vaccine would stop the spread, lab leak theory was a lie, all this stuff, because it
Pangolin.
didn't fit their narrative.
Penguin. Which, hold on, I just don't understand why no one thought that the lab leak theory could be true.
People did think
Because
it.
Like,
It's just
because
the
if you
kibosh
mention
was put on it. You
yeah
were
no if you
banned. I
mention it,
lost my Twitter account
yeah
because I linked to
if you mentioned lab
yeah,
leaks, you got banned, you got taken off
personally,
of
this guy
everything.
right here. I got banned from Twitter
And
for
maybe I didn't word
linking
that right. I
to
just, like, how lab leaks happen all the time. All the time.
yeah, but the thing
it
is,
was
I just don't.
verboten. It
no,
was
but
verboten.
Desiree, they knew it was a lab leak, and they knew because they funded the disease,
And we're not talking about late. We're talking about
so
look,
they were covering their ass.
before we started this podcast in the summer of 2020, I was kicked off of you guys know Nextdoor? Next,
No.
it's like so Nextdoor is like a community website, and it's like
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Like
just your
where you
local
have like your
community.
neighborhoods and shit.
Yeah, I got banned from that because this was in like June of 2020 because in Montgomery County, Maryland, they were like, we're not opening schools in September. And at the time, my daughter was in Montgomery County schools. And I was like, can someone please list the studies that have backup to show that children are at risk or that it's better to have them wearing masks or not be in public or not be in school together? And they're like, you're a Nazi, you're blah, 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 blah. And like, I actually posted a study where it was like, children are the risk to children from this virus is this much. The risk to children from not being able to socialize with other children is this much, right? And I got banned from Nextdoor for posting that. Not They didn't debate me on it. I got banned. And I was like, whoa. And that was really, for me personally, that moment is when I got radicalized. I was like, okay, that's how it's going to be. Here we go. 8 months later, this podcast was born. But in
Yeah.
that time, and again, this wasn't, people already knew. I'm talking if COVID started March of 20, by June of 20, there was already enough evidence out there that keeping elementary age kids out of school was stupid. And we still did it. We still did it.
Yeah, the teachers didn't want to go. That's why.
Teachers didn't want to go. Randy Weingarten, the unions. I mean, again, you could say, oh, there was a risk, but the risk of not doing it, and then you look at like all the developmental delays.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember seeing my own daughter with the mask. I'm like, she can't see people smile.
Mm-hmm.
You
People
know,
are all just,
it's
that's it.
disgusting.
Yeah, plus
Yeah,
they scared the crap out of these kids to where a lot of them are dealing with anxiety issues like the likes that we'd never seen before. I mean, they
yeah,
can't function.
yeah. And again, here's the thing that to me, and I'm just going to put a fine point on it because we're talking about this, and I've said it a million times on this podcast. Personally, the thing to me that was most destructive was, you know how like 9/11 changed everything?
Yeah.
COVID changed everything because before COVID, if the CDC was to put something out and say, "Hey, Michael, you need to wear plaid underwear and you need to, wear your hat backwards or you're going to get cancer." I'd be like, "All right, man, let me get my
Yeah.
plaid underwear. I'm going to like without, I wouldn't even question it." But now, after they misused their authority and after they lied, I don't trust them at all. And so
No.
my fear is when this happens again, and it will, hopefully not in our lifetime, but probably, I'm going to be like
Yeah.
millions of other people, and I'm going to be like, I got to do what? Fuck you guys. And then it's going to be real, and millions of people are going to die. That's my fear. And it will be right at their feet. Like they took all this goodwill, the CDC, the Democrat Party, the World Health Organization, all of these people, they took all this goodwill and they just pissed it right down the fucking toilet.
Yeah.
And people aren't stupid. You don't just get that back. That doesn't just come back. And there will be people who lose their lives because of that behavior. Hopefully, it's going to happen because people are going to look back at this and be like, I'm not going to do that again. Rightfully so, but maybe it's worse. Maybe it's real. Maybe they're
Yeah.
right this time.
I
But
just thought honestly, honesty, I mean, it is the best policy. Haven't we heard
yes,
that? If
yeah.
they would have just said stuff like this, hey, listen, I know everyone doesn't want to wear these masks. I don't either. However, at this time, we don't really know a lot of things. And so we're just asking, like with a pretty please with a cherry on top, can you
Yeah.
just wear the mask for a little bit until we figure some things out?
And they did. People did. I mean,
Or like, didn't lie to everyone and say that this is not like the flu. It is exactly like the flu.
but I'm saying that is the goodwill was there. I mean, March 27th, 2020, when that was like when everything hit the fan, at least that I remember, you could have told people that you have to do like 50 jumping jacks and like, eat pineapple juice all day. And they would have done it. Like everyone was like, okay, this is what we got to do. Because American people are basically good people, I believe, and they'll do what's in the best interest of society for a short amount of time until they figure out that they're being played, and then they're going to push back. And our government and the Democrat Party, and I say that even though they weren't in power at the time, they controlled the teachers' unions, they controlled these organizations, they pissed that goodwill away for short-term political benefit. That's what they did. And
Yeah. Well,
there's going to be a consequence for it. It's just it hasn't happened yet. And I'm not talking about a consequence for them. It's going to be a
yeah, for
consequence for
everybody.
everyone
Yeah.
because you can't get that back. I mean, I look, if the CDC came out tomorrow and said something, I'd be like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, I don't believe it. Why would I believe it? I'd be an idiot to believe them.
Yeah, but I mean, it's funny though because now we have the administration that we have, right? And then you have RFK Jr., right? He's a different. There's a different face on it right now.
Right now, but that's
That
leaving. That's going to leave.
no, I know, but well, I don't know when that's going to happen. But you're right. Like what we're learning now is like whoever's in charge, it doesn't last. And now they're just playing games with, okay, we can indict each other, we can disappear each other, we can, we'll jail each other, we'll sue each other. Like it's just because it's getting to a point where I don't know, like you said, if people are like, if anybody's going to have faith in any of these institutions at
Look,
all.
you've got,
You know
and
what I mean? Like, I mean, none of it.
I'll use his name because he likes to get into our messages, and I appreciate him watching. But we have Darcy who was on our podcast,
Yeah.
friends of Zeus, and was like, I would not let anyone in. Like he was totally for kicking people who didn't wear a mask out of polite society. He was totally for denying people their livelihoods if they didn't buy into what the
Hmm.
whatever COVID regulations of the week were. And to this day, and
And
even
medical
say
treatment.
he can say and medical treatment, like they should be denied medical treatment. And I would say to this day, and he can say otherwise in the comments, he probably still believes that. That is fucked up. And that is fucked up big time. And I, he's a smart guy, but that's what he believes. That's fucked
Well,
up. I mean,
I
that's fucked up. I mean,
no,
seriously.
well,
I mean, he believes that honestly, that you should be able to deny someone their livelihood and medical treatment if they don't just buy in immediately to some bureaucrat's proclamation that has been evident, like proven to be incorrect.
yeah, false.
And
Yeah.
today he'll still stand for, I guarantee you, he will still stand by that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it also depends on who the authority is at the time. You know what I mean? Like, it was the CDC at the time, it was Fauci and everybody sort of like fell in love with that guy and it was a trust issue, right? Like, but
Yeah.
like you said, now Trump's back in power. And I know he was in power then, but he was belittled by the press and by every time, if he disagreed with Fauci, the world sided with Fauci. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
on the COVID issue, he kind of let them be in charge. Like, I mean, he sort of stepped back and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, Operation Warp Speed, I'm working on a cure." And that was
And
about it.
and
But
to his credit, yeah.
now that Trump and RFK Jr. are sort of in charge, I don't. I bet you Darcy would have the opposite opinion. Like if the CDC said, "Hey, wear your hat backwards," and this is really the only way to. He wouldn't do it because it's coming from them.
Right. Because it was political all along.
Right.
I mean, again, you look at like our media, this is what blows my mind. And this is family members, friends of mine, people I respect. And I put Darcy in that category. I respect Darcy. Darcy is a wickedly smart dude, probably way smarter than me. We both love BBSs, which is great. But the fact that and I'm just using him as an example, like buys into this stuff and is not critical about it. When you look at the last 4 years, last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and again, not to be a broken record, but you've got like the Russian collusion hoax, find people on both sides. You've got suckers and losers, and you know all these things. Oh, the laptop isn't real; it's Russian disinformation,
Right.
and all this stuff. Where ABC News, CBS News, ABC, NBC,
CNN.
CNN, all are on the record. NPR said at the time that they are not going to talk about the Hunter Biden laptop because they're only interested in real news and things that are serious. That was like the head of NPR. This is a
Hmm.
government funded news organization. So these are the same people now that are like, oh, the Maryland man and da, da, da. And like, did everyone just, are we dreaming? Like, is this like the poppies from Wizard of Oz and everyone waking up
Puppies.
and forgetting like what happened?
Love
These
puppies.
people have been lying my whole life. They've been lying for the last 10 years.
Hmm.
And now they're still being presented like you got Jake Tapper, just to pick one person. What's he on, CNN? Right?
Yep.
He pushed the Russian collusion hoax more than almost anyone else. Uh, he said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. He said that, Joe Biden, when no one's looking, is doing backflips,
He's sharp as a tack.
sharp as a tack. And then all this stuff comes out, and then he writes a book about how, like, oh man, we probably could have done better or whatever. And he's trying to take the high road. I'm like, why is this guy still on TV right now? Like, Jake Tapper, like, I wouldn't I wouldn't trust Jake Tapper with a bag of my cat's shit that I pulled out of his litter box. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust him to deal with that properly. And yet somehow, because collectively as a society, our memory is like 30 seconds, he's still held up as what? I don't even know what. Rachel Maddow, all these people. I don't know, man. It's just
No, I hear you. I hear
I feel
you.
like we're right back at the beginning. Like I feel
Yeah.
like we just keep spiraling back. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
I can't
and
get it through my head. I just can't get it
no,
through
the
my
whole,
head.
the whole, the whole, no one is above the law
No
crap.
one's above the
No one's
law.
above the law when it's Trump, but when it's judges that are helping illegal
Out
aliens
the back
escape,
door.
I mean, then it's like a miscarriage of justice that she got arrested and
Yeah.
she's been suspended from the bench.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah,
And
they're
I
again,
good.
just have a
They're,
question.
yeah,
yeah.
sure.
Can we talk about bleh, stroke? That's what I'm having. Um,
Stroke, it's what
with
I'm
the Mar
having. It's what's
stroke.
for
It's what's for
breakfast.
dinner.
Oh,
Um,
dinner. Yeah.
can this Maryland man thing?
Yeah.
I mean, what was he actually not supposed to get deported? Like, what happened with that?
Okay. Here's the deal.
Okay.
I'll break it down for you.
Okay, great.
Okay. So he was caught in a car with people who were human traffickers, who
Hmm.
were MS-13 members.
Mhm.
He's got other associations. He's was found hanging out with people from MS-13, blah, blah, whatever. He's originally from El Salvador. When he originally was going through his quote unquote due process a few years ago, he said that he could not be deported to El Salvador because there was a rival gang there called Barrio 18 who
From
was,
Guatemala.
or yes, who was like against MS-13 and that his life would be in danger. In the years
Well, sorry,
since,
that's what happens when you play with gangs.
but in the
Sorry.
years since, Barrio 18 now ceased to exist. But again, people that are like, oh, this guy's not, he's a Maryland man. The whole point was of his defense was that it was a rival gang, which means he was in a gang.
Yeah.
So the mistake which occurred was he was always going to be deported when he was caught. But there was originally a ruling that said he wouldn't be deported to El Salvador because he could possibly face retribution there. But that was years ago, and that the situation around that is null and void now because that gang doesn't even exist anymore. So yes, technically
Plus he's being put in a supermax prison with guards.
correct, but he's
So
an El Salvadorian citizen. That's where he was
yeah,
born. He's
right.
literally where he belongs.
Yeah.
And if he gets brought back to the US, 1 millisecond after being released, he's going to be deported again. So
Yeah.
he's never going to be here again. And
Yeah, no,
he's
he
not a Maryland man. I mean, again, I wrote so many letters to Van Hollen. I'm like, I mean, I'm a Maryland father. This guy is not a Maryland father.
So why were they saying he was wrongly deported? Because at that time they said they weren't going to
Because there
deport
was
him,
a
but now it doesn't.
no,
because
he was
there
What's
supposed to
the
get wasn't he supposed to get an interview, an administrative interview? That was
I
like the last thing that was supposed to happen.
I believe so, and there was no question that he was going to be deported. It was about
Yeah,
where, and that was the quote unquote mistake.
right. He had appealed. It was denied.
Correct.
He was designated to be a member of MS-13,
Correct.
which Trump has declared a terrorist organization,
Mhm.
Correct.
which he's
As he
allowed to
should, as he
do.
should.
Yep.
Yep. So this guy already appealed and lost. So he was being
Correct.
deported no matter what.
Correct.
And the media decided to make him Jesus.
Correct. Yeah, because that's again, they're ideologues and they're not on the side of truth.
But see, this is a mix. This is kind of like, this might be controversial, but this is like the George Floyd thing. Why is this the martyr?
Because
Like,
because
what about him makes him so special to be the poster child for
look, they don't give a crap about
wrongful
this guy
fucking
at all. They're just
Yeah,
looking at ways to kind of pluck away at Trump and
Trump.
pluck away at American citizens that are interested in rule of law and such and so forth. That's all it's about. They don't give a crap about this guy. They
Right.
don't give a crap. Look, if this guy ends up staying in El Salvador, in this prison or another prison or whatever, there's not going to be a follow. They don't care about him. They care about him as far as it gets them to talk about what their issue is.
Right.
But they
And also,
don't care about him
But
as a
what's the
person.
issue? I just don't even know what's the issue. Why can't he go
Orange
back to
man
El
bad.
Salvador?
yeah,
Orange man
But
orange
what's the
bad.
man
problem?
bad.
Orange
That's
man
it.
bad. That's it. It's
It
like,
doesn't have to be Orange Man bad. It has to be it.
look, they got people on MSNBC. These are pundits, people that were, who's Simone Sanders, the one that was like the former head of the Kamala campaign. She was like, they're going to be deporting U.S. citizens out of their beds, like to concentration camps now. Like that was her take. Like they're going to go in, they're going to be deporting U.S. citizens, pulling them out of their bed, sending them to concentration camps. That was her take on this because she's trying to gin up all
Fear.
these crazy people and all this fear.
Yeah.
Instead of just being honest, she calls him a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. This guy, look, he doesn't know what a Jimmy is. He doesn't know. He couldn't find the Chesapeake Bay at all. Like he has no idea. He's not a
So
Maryland.
just to recap, so a person
Yeah,
already in jail,
Yeah.
he was already in jail,
He's in custody. Yeah.
yeah,
already in custody, whatever prison, we don't know, in
Yeah.
custody, was deported,
correct,
whom was an illegal citizen or who
correct,
was
Right.
here illegally.
Yep.
correct.
That was adjudicated. Yep.
Okay. So had he stayed here, our tax dollars are going to house this person that's here illegally, that
Right.
was participating in gang
So
activity.
Yeah.
So I
yeah,
just
look, here's the
And,
thing.
and no, but Desiree, they don't care. That's the whole point. Trump even said, like, when this whole deportation thing started, the idea was he was going to start with those that we had in custody. They were going to crack down on the gangs and they were going to try to deport the criminals.
yeah.
This guy is one of those criminals. And the Democrats are still going to attach themselves to him and make him a martyr and call him a Maryland man and parade his wife on TV, even though he was involved in beating her up years ago. Like,
Yeah,
that doesn't matter because he got it together and they've had a great marriage ever
and
since
in,
then.
And
in
could we
her own
revisit what
handwriting.
MS-13 has been doing in his country? I mean, a
Oh,
lot of
Look,
bad shit.
yeah, their motto is like rape, murder, kill. I mean, they have tattoos about they'll get a tattoo for every person they kill. In order to be initiated into that gang, you have to go kill an innocent person in cold blood. I mean, they're bastards. I mean, anybody who's done real journalism on
which
MS-13,
they don't.
which they
Yeah,
don't, but it's been done. Like I think Vice did a whole documentary episode on them years ago, getting into like some of the stuff that they do. They come into this country, they kill people, and they run drugs and guns and
and
human trafficking.
and
Like,
and can
what are we doing? How do you
and
side with that?
and here's the thing too, and this is what I wish more people would be vocal about. If there's 20,000 people that are in this country illegally who knowingly crossed the border, knowing they were breaking the law, came into our country, have been here for a week, have been here for 10 years, and there's 20,000 of them, and they get deported, and there's like 50 of them in there that came in illegally but were good people and just got caught up in tough shit, man. I don't give a
Yeah.
shit. I really don't give a shit because we're talking about millions and millions. And when I go to the emergency room in my county, half the emergency room is filled with people that who knows where they came from. The
And then and
schools,
they can't pay, and they're going to
they
get
can't
medical
pay.
treatment anyway.
The schools, Montgomery County schools, are budgeted and supposed to have, say, 22 kids in the third grade class, but they have 42 kids in the third grade
Hmm.
class because they have to educate anyone that's here,
Yeah,
regardless of what their status is.
yeah, and 10
So,
don't speak English.
and they don't speak English, so you
Hmm.
have to have all the ESOL teachers, and you have to
Yeah,
have this, and you have to have that, and in the meantime, they want your third grader to read genderqueer, and you can't opt out. I mean, this is what I'm saying is it's untenable, and it's getting pushed to the point, and I really do fear this. I really do. I don't want it to be that way, but I think it is. This is going to get out of control. It is. If I look, like I said before, I can send my daughter somewhere else. If I didn't have that option, I would be, I'd be pretty pissed
yeah,
because I'd be in a situation where I legally have to send my child to a place where they are doing damage to her mind. How is
yeah.
that?
But
How is
no,
that?
but
That's you can't do that.
no, but Katanji Brown Jackson says you could pull your kid out of school and homeschool, or you could pay for another school. Like she just says, hey,
Yeah,
there's a way
no
to opt
problem.
out. No
Yeah,
problem.
because you don't have to go to work.
Right, right. You don't have to go to work.
Well,
You
you
know,
could also move to a different state. Again, I said this before.
you
Y'all can move
could.
to
No,
Kansas. We got room, and we ain't dealing with this shit. I
Desiree,
mean,
you are 100% right. You are
my son doesn't go to a
100% right.
public school, but not for any of this. And I can guarantee you that none of this shit's going on in public school. They
Yeah.
can't here. They can't even fucking. They're still doing abstinence only education, which I think is ridiculous. But
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, but
yeah,
Well,
there's no
I,
genderqueer being read in any of these schools around here because
yeah.
that would not
no,
fly.
there are plenty of red counties and red states that it would be much nicer to live in. So I feel your pain, Mike.
Yeah.
You know, you
But
just
you don't give up your constitutional rights based on where you live
no, you
either.
shouldn't.
You shouldn't, right? I mean, it's still America. So, it's, but it's weird, man, how it still creeps in, right? All this stuff. It still creeps into the culture no matter what. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
I mean, they
I don't
wanted
know.
to, like you said, they want full power. They run the educational system, not only in Montgomery County elementary schools and such, but in the universities.
Yeah.
I mean, they start the brainwashing, and now they want to start the brainwashing in elementary school. But they used to have to settle for college, and they've been doing that for decades.
Yeah.
At least in college, you can somewhat choose to be brainwashed. And by that, I mean like you
Right.
can
You're
get like a
paying.
liberal arts degree and take all the women's and African American studies and transgender studies. I'm sure is going to be a class here soon.
Oh, sure.
Gender studies, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but now they're going for
And
the
that's your
kids in third
degree.
grade and kindergarten, right?
I I just
But
can't fathom. I know it's happening, but I just don't understand why. No,
it's the
there
thing
should
that,
not be a book read that has to do with sex.
In first
right.
grade,
Why is that? Yeah. Why are they so strong about that?
because they're
But
perverts.
yeah. I mean, again, it's like this whole thing with due process. It's like the Constitution is not a suicide pact, right? So these people that are like, oh, we have to have due process. When it suits them, they're all about like, oh, we need to follow the law, we need to follow this and that. We need to argue due process, even though it's very questionable whether people who are here illegally, like what is their level of due process? Like, do we have
Their
different
due
levels of
process
due
is get the fuck
process?
out.
I'm just saying it's like they're all about the rule of law to try and destroy the rule of law. I mean, it's I don't know, it's so cancerous. It's just horrible. I mean, we're dealing with people who fundamentally just refuse the existence of Western civilization, the Enlightenment, you know, society, the Constitution.
No, they hate America.
They hate it. They hate the country.
They hate capitalism. They hate Christianity. They hate our Europeans and forefathers and anything Western civilization. Like you said, they hate it and
Yeah,
they want to get rid of it.
yeah. And then they try and
And,
use the rules to
well,
squash it.
well, like you said, they're using the Constitution to defeat the Constitution in a way. Like
Yeah,
but this is what is interesting though, because the constitutional interpreter supreme is the Supreme Court. So now all of these issues are going before the Supreme Court. I
yeah.
mean, because so far in Trump's administration, I think they said there's 200 lawsuits against his administration, and I think there's about 100 judicial injunctions so far,
Yeah,
because they're trying to stop him from doing anything and
yeah,
everything he wants to do.
because he has a short time to do it.
Right. So it's like this is what scares me a little bit, because all of these constitutional, because the Supreme Court could like end some of this madness with decisions that clarify the Constitution.
But they
Just
won't.
clarify it. Okay. And the thing is, right now, I'm even a little worried that Coney Barrett is now hanging with the ladies,
Yeah.
because she's not really been consistently conservative at all either. She's very wishy-washy, so I don't know how much I
Well,
trust her.
yeah,
You know,
not even conservative, just constitutionalist.
well,
And we have a media that like, the three that they are always going to vote as a block
yeah,
and they never get questioned. And then so it's really just the other six that are variable. And John
yeah,
Roberts is like whatever.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, he's
I
sort of
mean,
inconsistent.
the whole idea, look, anyone that is intellectually honest has to admit that the idea of having federal district court judges make rulings from their little district that affect the entire nation and overrule a duly elected president is retarded. That is stupid. Like, how can anyone make an argument that that is a good idea? You have 700 plus district court judges, and
Mm.
you mean to tell me that and anyone, and they're not elected, that any one of them can just overrule uh the only dude that is elected by every citizen in the country? Like how did that start? It's not in the Constitution. This was like a product of Congress, these courts. Anyway, it's
Yeah, look, there's all sorts of issues that they probably will be taking up soon. Like you already mentioned, this Montgomery with the schools.
yeah.
I mean, like I almost wish this, like at some point the Supreme Court made a ruling. I forget the name of the case about pornography.
Hmm.
And one of the justices said, you know what, I can't really define it, but I know when I see it.
Yeah. That was I
Um,
can't remember that guy, but it was a
and
while ago.
and and I almost wish, like in this particular case, is whether that people can opt out, and it's going to affect the school. Like, how will we be able to teach anything if so many kids are allowed to opt out of math or social studies or whatever? It's almost like I wish the Supreme Court would just kind of go to the idea of protecting children from certain material that's inappropriate. Like just acknowledge that that's a thing that we as a society respect and
Yeah.
want to defend. And
Yeah.
just say, you know what? There's certain books that shouldn't make it anywhere in an elementary school, period. Like pull a DeSantis. Just say, here's the law of the land now. Children's protection is more important than XYZ, and just make it so that in certain, like at a certain age bracket, certain subjects shouldn't even be brought up. And
Yeah.
they shouldn't be in a math class. Like, oh, Jimmy's a transgender named Susie, and he has $5, but this costs $4.75. So you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like whatever they're inserting,
Well,
just say sexuality should not come up in elementary school unless it's by the school nurse for a sex ed health class, and that's it.
And here's a note about priorities. Okay. So, I lived in Baltimore City. Over half of Baltimore City high schools last year, over half had zero, zero students that tested to be proficient in English or math.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Montgomery County Public Schools, my wife grew up here in this county, went to Montgomery County Public Schools. My mother-in-law taught in Montgomery County Public Schools. This is like in the past. Montgomery County, Maryland is one of the highest taxed. It's the highest taxed county in Maryland. And when we were growing up, when we were in elementary school, people were like, okay, but Montgomery County had the best schools, best public schools in the whole state of Maryland. I mean, they out tested everybody. It was fantastic. Today, 2024, it's getting near Baltimore levels. Like
Wow.
just over half of the high schools in Montgomery County last year had a majority of students who tested proficient in math and English. So while all this woke crap is coming in, the quality of the education is freaking crashing and nosediving.
It's
And
again, they lost the plot. The plot
yeah,
is not to bring it in and just like suck the normal shit out of society, like learning.
yeah. I'm just saying
Yeah, if you want the plot to be like like introduce wokeness or whatever, that's
it'd be one thing
I
if
don't
the
want to say
test
that's fine,
scores
but
were still like way high
hmm
but it's not. It's to the detriment of. In other words, it points to what their priorities are, and their priorities aren't the priorities of what the parents are. And the parents are the ones paying for this.
Right.
This is where this is happening. It's like you can have whatever view you want, but the basic purpose of the school is being neglected, and they're trying to push this ideology at the expense of the quality of the education. Again, like I said, this
Well, they
county
want they want
people
people dumber,
they want people dumber. I mean,
and and then they'll do away with the SATs entirely
yeah,
because it won't matter what you know or how well you can actually work out logic or
well, it doesn't necessarily matter about an SAT score anymore because they're not even using
they're not
standardized test
even
scores
using
to get
that.
into any type of
That's true. That's
well,
college.
true.
no, well that's what I'm saying. They can raise the kids to be dumber, still have the option to go to college, still take on all those student loans, still have that federally paid money to the bloated university. So
Yeah,
they'll still make their money.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, because kids go even the kids that are failing at math and and literature, they'll still get accepted because maybe they have a story or this is my life experience or whatever.
Well, yeah. I mean,
And stories are great, but you got to also be smart too.
Yeah, but now I don't think that they care as long.
the goal of the individual teacher or principal is not the goal of the administrative state and the union and the school board. So again, you end up having like the citizen who's the parent being like, this is crap. And then like the teacher, I've been here 20 years, I'm doing my best. I have to buy my own paper, so
hmm
they get those people fighting. But meanwhile, the people who are up here in the administration and the school board, they know exactly what they're doing. And it's like the people who are the teachers and the principals are mostly like true believers. They think they're doing their best. Whatever. They just do what they're told.
Right.
I just can't believe that we're living in a time where we have a case again, in the Supreme Court where parents have to say, I don't want my fourth grader seeing a cartoon picture of a dick in a mandatory book that they have to read for the curriculum. And that's
Yeah.
what they're saying. That that is what these people are pushing for. And if you're against it, you're a Nazi.
Yeah, that's the world we live in.
That's the
That's our
world we live
country.
in.
That's our
So,
country right now.
Yet if you draw dicks on the bathroom wall, you're gonna get in trouble.
yeah, but not in the book.
I don't even know if you'll get in trouble for that anymore.
So I don't know where this episode went. I just
You had some stuff to get off your chest.
and I don't even know if I did it, but a little bit. We didn't see that other guy pop in.
No, no. Well, somebody came on earlier blaring the TV.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna have
that
to.
might have been an attempt, I think, but I don't know. We'll see if you'll let that make the final cut. I thought it was pretty funny.
Maybe we'll do a funsy next week. I mean, look, for our viewer out there, I would love to do funsy episodes every week, but sometimes I just got to get some crap off my chest.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, everybody.
Have a good night.
We'll see you next week.
You got it.
Take care, guys.